Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. My name is Lily, aka Lily Koi, and I make videos about health and well-being, from nutrition and diet to other lifestyle factors to emotional health, self-love, self-care, all the goodness. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ding the bell. You will stay up to date with my videos. So if you are familiar with me, you know that I advocate for a whole plant food diet, which is rich in carbohydrates. And I know that carbohydrates have been so demonized over the last, I guess it's been a decades-long thing. The diet industry, and they're fighting themselves and like breathing fire on one another. Oh Lord, it's a mess. But throughout all that, carbohydrates have been demonized. And for good reason. Carbohydrates are dangerous. They are potent fuel for our metabolic fires. And when our metabolisms are pumping along at a good click, burning lots of calories, using all those carbohydrates inside the mitochondria to make lots and lots of ATP, there is the potential that during that process, significant amounts of reactive oxygen species can be produced. I go into a little bit more detail about those in this video up there. It's short and sweet, I swear. I mean, I don't want to demonize carbohydrates, and in the metabolism of all macronutrients, there are byproducts, some of which are quite dangerous, that are produced all around. Metabolism is dangerous business. You also end up with all of the carbohydrate stress about advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, which I addressed in that video up there. And so if you mix people's opinions with a little bit of perhaps poorly understood or applied science, you can end up with a really scary picture of carbohydrates being painted. And I don't blame you at all. There's so much information out there to support the fact that carbohydrates are not good for us and that they should be avoided at all costs. So it's obviously really confusing when people come to my channel and they see me talking about the huge amounts of carbohydrates that I eat. And it's very confusing when I advocate for eating carbohydrates for weight loss and talking about how I lost 40 plus pounds eating a very high carbohydrate rich diet. So I do get a lot of questions from people who are confused about good carbs versus bad carbs, which is another very common phrase that's used within the diet industries, but it's not always clarified. So today, I will do my best to clarify for you good carbs versus bad carbs. I'm gonna start with the bad guys. So bad carbs, which are often referred to as like simple carbohydrates or simple sugars, are usually identified as what's called mono or disaccharides, which, as the Latin name implies, is a carbohydrate that is made up of one or two sugar molecules. Mono and disaccharides are digested very, very quickly by your body. They are absorbed so fast from under our tongue, inside our stomachs, and our small intestines. That sugar gets into our bloodstream really quickly. And once it's in our bloodstream, you can have things like AGEs produced. You can also end up with hyperglycemia if you don't have healthy insulin levels. And once that sugar is inside your cell, inside your mitochondria, creating energy for you, you have the possibility of reactive oxygen species cropping up. So it's because of this fast turnover rate that mono and disaccharides are, generally speaking, demonized. They're digested quickly, cause big blood sugar fluctuations, and there can be some side effects of eating them. But where are you gonna find these mono and disaccharides in real life? For starters, fruits are a great source of simple carbohydrates, of mono and disaccharides, like glucose and fructose. But I don't consider fruits to be a bad carb in the slightest, and scientific research indicates that fruits are not bad for us at all. In fact, some really good research indicates that you actually can't overdose on fruit. And I can speak from personal experience as being someone who has eaten thousands of pounds of fruit every year for almost a decade, that you can't OD on fruit. The more common source of these simple sugars, of these mono and disaccharides in the standard American diet, and the reason that simple sugars get such a bad rap, is that they're really common in foods like candy and soda, cakes, crackers, biscuits, cookies, because those foods are made up of refined sugars. Sugars that have been taken from a natural whole food, concentrated, they've had all the fiber and antioxidants removed from them, and then they are presented to us for digestion in a very unnatural form. These foods do cause big problems with inflammation, with blood sugar dysregulation, with kidney function, with vascular health. It just goes on and on. They are, in my opinion, definitely not ideal or good sources of carbohydrate. So to make spotting bad carbohydrate sources easy for you, I'm going to put an umbrella term over them, which is that they are processed carbohydrates, meaning that they are carbohydrate foods that are being presented to you in a virtually unidentifiable form. Just by looking at the food, you couldn't tell what the original ingredients were. Cakes, cookies, breads, a lot of pastas, those kinds of foods. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, hey, Lily, I see you eat those foods sometimes, and B, what about the whole grain forms, like whole grain bread, whole grain pasta? Well, first, yes, sometimes I do definitely eat refined or processed forms of carbohydrate. Like, no one is on a perfect dietary path in this room. And I happily indulge in processed carbs from time to time. Like, it's not a huge problem. To answer the second question about whole grain products, now it can get very confusing and a little bit tedious because a lot of the mass marketed products that are marketed as being whole grain and healthier and provides 5 grams of whole grains per serving, a lot of those are just hype. And what happens many times is that those companies say produce whole wheat bread, and what they do is they add in a bunch of white flour, and then they just take some brand byproducts from wheat processing and add that back in, as if that is somehow going to equal a whole food. It doesn't work. There are options like, stone ground whole wheat, which is the whole wheat that has just been ground up, and that is unquestionably better, but you're still getting a food that has been mashed up and altered, and the inside of the wheat is more exposed, and so it can be digested much faster. It can turn to sugar much faster, even though it's made from a whole grain. So I personally tend to avoid those carbohydrates like, whole grain bread or the puffed rice cakes, those kinds of foods that you can almost tell what they are, but they've still been modified pretty significantly. And before we wrap up the bad carbs section, I just want to reiterate, soda is not fit for human consumption. Refined white sugar, I can't think of a good reason to ever use it. I just can't. Which brings us to the part of the video that I'm really excited about, the good carbs section, because I love carbs, I love food, I love eating, I love carbs. So in the simplest, most basic, most non-confusing terms possible, good carbs are whole carbs. That means you can look at the food and tell what it is just by looking at it. Carbohydrates that have not been processed. Within the mainstream media, oftentimes good carbs are referred to as carbohydrates that are complex, meaning that they are oligo or polysaccharides, which means that many molecules of sugar are attached together in certain configurations to create different substances like starches or fibers, aka cellulose. Because of the complex nature of these attachments, it takes our bodies a little bit longer to digest those sugars and break them down into their subjective sugar molecules. And some of those, like insoluble plant fiber, are indigestible to us, so we cannot actually digest them. Our gut bacteria can, and that's the subject of another video, but it's these complex molecules, oligo and polysaccharides, that are considered much more healthful because they are digested slower, their sugars are released slower, and they're less likely to produce compounds like AGEs. Something else that unprocessed whole carbohydrate sources have are antioxidants. So if you've watched my other two videos on reactive oxygen species and AGEs, you will remember that antioxidants are absolutely vital for reducing the amounts of inflammation and thus disease in our body. Antioxidants prevent and stop oxidation. So antioxidants and all of the other protective compounds that are found in whole plant foods that we know about and those that we probably haven't even discovered yet are so important to be included with the carbohydrates we eat, so that during the metabolism of those carbohydrates, there are compounds in place to reduce any potential damage. This is the beauty of evolution and eating a species-specific diet. The food that we eat comes in a complete package in a way that our body is able to utilize effectively, quickly, and completely. In addition to the antioxidant vitamins and minerals, there are also a bunch of other vitamins and minerals that are imperative to our health. And when we get those vitamins and minerals from whole plant foods, they come in their complete package. They come with all the cofactors that aid absorption and utilization. It's really a beautiful, holistic, symbiotic, gorgeous event that I could geek out on for hours. So when we eat a diet that's rich in good carbohydrates, rich in whole, unprocessed plant foods, we get the benefits of eating a diet that's high in carbs, like lots of energy that's consistent and lasting. We get fast, speedy metabolisms that help prevent weight gain and help us to lose weight. We get a healthy and thriving gut microbiome that supports our immune system. And we get exposure to tons of antioxidants that helps keep every single molecule in our bodies healthy and functional and protected. And I think this is the most important one for me. I get to feel well fed. I get to eat to my heart's content and let those whole plant foods fill me up with their fiber and their water and their carbohydrates and their nutrients. And I love it. And since I know people love specifics, I will be specific. My favorite good carbs are antioxidant-rich fruits and vegetables. Never, never, never be afraid of fruit. Then you get your starchier foods like potatoes, white potatoes, nothing to be afraid of. I personally adore sweet potatoes. We are also really big on the whole grains, on the legumes. So many different types of beans to explore in this world. I swear you will never get bored. I love me some squash, like pumpkins, acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash. 'Tis the season. And whatever other starchy veggies I can get my hands on. And I will mention that yes, of course, I eat refined carbohydrates from time to time. I'm certainly not scared of indulging or enjoying some noodles or some, vegan ice cream or gluten-free cakes or cookies from time to time. It's definitely not a big or significant part of my diet, but if the opportunity comes up and I'm in the mood, of course I have some. I also do use sugar from time to time to flavor foods. You guys might be aware that one of my go-to salad dressings contains a tablespoon of coconut sugar. And I do purposefully try to get as unprocessed a type of sugar as I can, coconut sugar. I'm not using white sugar, but it's still a refined sugar. It's a sweetener. It does contain some antioxidants and other nutrients because it isn't overly processed. But nonetheless, there are times when I prioritize taste along with health. Like, no one's gonna be doing this 100% perfectly. And I get a lot of questions from people like, oh my gosh, Lily, I wanna be healthy, but I love bread. Like, I just love bread and sandwiches and toast. It's just such a wonderful part of my life. I can't imagine giving it up. Can't I have my whole wheat bread? And to that I say, of course. Try to find an option that's as healthy as possible. But good Lord, like, if you love bread, enjoy it. Be mindful of how much and what type you're eating, but don't make yourself miserable in the pursuit of health. It's just, it won't work for starters. You'll be so gosh darn stressed out and miserable missing your bread that you'll just raise your stress hormones and it'll all just explode in your face. So if there are certain foods that you can't imagine your life without, make some room for those in your diet. Be aware of the potential consequences, but your happiness and well-being is of the utmost importance in this process. Okay, so I hope that that has been a decent description for you guys in terms of healthy carbohydrates. Whole plant foods, never forget, hashtag whole plant foods for life, all day, every day, whole plant foods. Watch the Lifestyle Basics if you need some more tips. Okay, you guys, thank you for watching. Until next time, make better choices for yourselves. Take really, really good care. I will see you all oh so very soon. Bye.